Hello and welcome to BioRules video lessons. Today I'm going to be talking about biomagnification, a very important phenomenon in environmental conservation and very important for our health as well. But for us to start talking about biomagnification, first we need to review energy flow. So we saw recently that energy enters in most ecosystems by light, photosynthesis. The plants are capable of getting that, and then they pass energy to the next trophic level, like for example here for the rabbit, but they don't pass it all. They pass only about 10% of the energy, 90% goes away. And the rabbit passes energy to the next trophic level when they are eaten, but again only about 10%, most of the energy goes away as heat. So what this has to do with the idea of biomagnification, okay? What matters here is to remember that one trophic level must eat much of the previous one to get enough energy, because you only get about 10%. So if you have a certain mass of tree, only 10% of that mass will end up in the rabbit, and so on. Most will be lost as heat, will go away as heat. So energy gets in, energy gets out. Okay, carbon. If you remember the carbon cycle, carbon gets in by photosynthesis, gets in and become organic molecules, but carbon also gets out in the way of CO2. So carbon gets in, carbon gets out. Okay. What about through the feeding? Okay, go in, go out. Okay, we got the idea. What about nitrogen? Nitrogen gets in as amino acid when you eat, or gets in as nitrates to the plants, and then nitrogen also gets out in the way of urea or ammonia when you pee or whatever. So basically, many chemicals and many things in life, they get in, they get out. Energy gets in, energy gets out. Carbon gets in, carbon gets out. Nitrogen gets in, nitrogen gets out. However, some chemicals, they do not get out so easily. Okay? So, example of chemicals that do not get out so easily. Fat-soluble organics. Fat-soluble organics, they end up stored in fat cells. It's an example of this molecule here called DDT. DDT is the chemical used in spray to kill insects. It was widely used to control mosquitoes. It was heavily used to control many insects, even in agriculture. Also, other chemicals that get in and don't get out, like heavy metals. Some metals, they get in and they get attached to enzyme or other biological chemicals we have in our body, and they don't get out so easily. One classic example, mercury. Mercury, that once upon a time was used in thermometers. They have been used in filling cavities, but they are also used in gold mining and batteries, for example. They are examples of chemicals that get in to the body, they don't get out of the body. Okay? So, because only 10% of the energy or carbon or whatever stays in your body when you get from the previous trophic level, so only 10% is passed. As a result, 1 kilogram of food is not enough to make 1 kilogram of herbivore. For you to make 1 kilogram of herbivore, actually the primary consumer must eat about 10 times the mass that's going to be ending up retaining. So we need, this animal here needs to eat 10 times the food to make 1 time of its mass. So you need 10 kilograms of plants to make 1 kilogram of primary consumer of this herbivore. The problem is that if this producer, this plant, is contaminated, we'll have a problem, because most ingested mass goes away in the way of heat. So the mass eaten goes away, but if you have a contamination, DDT, mercury, whatever, even in a small concentration that I represent here with 1 dot for each of these plants, when that animal eats that and keeps all this chemical, all the DDT or all the mercury, that animal will have now 10 dots of that chemical. The concentration of the chemical just got up. because most of what was eaten went away, but these chemicals stayed behind. So this here is the problem with biomagnification, that leads to an increase in concentration along the trophic levels. This here is the definition of biomagnification, the increase of concentration of certain chemicals along the trophic levels. Let's talk specific examples here. So let's talk about a chemical that's there, mercury, for example, in the phytoplankton. You have 1 part per billion in the water that ends up becoming part of the phytoplankton. 1 part per billion is not much. It's not going to create anybody problem. Even if you drink this water, it's not going to be a problem for you. Yes, it has a little bit of mercury. Every water body in the planet has mercury. If you drink it, that's not a big problem. However, when the zooplankton eats the phytoplankton, now it has 10 parts per billion of mercury. And now it's started to become a problem. Not very big problem yet, 10 parts per billion, no, not much. But then the small fish eats the zooplankton. And now the small fish has 100 parts per billion. And then the large fish eats the small fish. And now the large fish has 1,000 parts per billion, or 1 part per million of mercury. Now this is a problem. Okay? Being very specific, let's talk about mercury. Know that we find them in batteries. They are used in the industry. They are used in gold mining. Okay? If you have phytoplankton with 1 part per billion of mercury, not a problem. If you eat that phytoplankton, if you drink that water, that's not going to be a health problem for you. But the phytoplankton feeds the zooplankton that now has 10 parts per billion. That feeds the small fish that now has 100 parts per billion. That feeds the medium fish that now has 1,000 parts per billion. That feeds the large fish that now has 10,000 parts per billion. That may feed humans. And if they eat only fish, what's not usually the case, but if they did, they would have 100,000 parts per billion. That would be a massive concentration, gigantic concentration of mercury. And what's the problem of that? Mercury intoxication can cause neurological damage. So the first symptoms are these white spots in the hands, but they end up leading to this acrogynia, that leads to pain and this pink discoloration, but can lead to ataxia, impairment of speech, hearing, and they can lead to death. So mercury intoxication can be a big problem. Okay? Let's talk about another biomagnified chemical, DDT, that used to be widely used as a pesticide. Okay? Phytoplankton, 1 part per billion. Zooplankton, 10 parts per billion. Small fish, medium fish, large fish. You see, it's biomagnifying. And the problem is that large fish here will be eaten by seagulls or other top bird predators. So what? So what? That the DDT in high concentration leads to poor calcium fixation on eggshells. As a result, the eggshells of the top predator birds like seagulls, eagles, they are going to be thin and they will break very easily, reducing the population. Here we have some examples of thin, breakable eggs, and that's not good for the population of the birds that are eating fish that have DDT that was biomagnified. Okay, what can we do about that? Nowadays we don't use DDT anymore. Most countries now are using a pesticide like DEET. If you get your mosquito repellent, you're going to see that it has DEET in its formula. The DEET is not biomagnified, so then you can use, it's going to get in, it's going to get out, so it's not a problem anymore. So looking for alternatives is a good idea. One more example is TBT, which is the anti-crusting paint in ships. Okay, here we have on the left the paint on a metal plate, and here we have the same kind of metal plate without that paint. So we have animals that grow over there, and this is a problem because the ships then have drag. So to avoid that, they paint the ship with this TBT chemical. The problem is that this TBT gets dissolved in water and they make female snails to grow penis, so they are imposex. They create a false male that has a penis, don't have more the female genitalia, and they don't manage to reproduce anymore. So that is reducing the population of these snails, which are usually predators, and it's a keystone species, and it's causing problems in rocky shores. So we don't have a solution for that yet. We need a paint that is not biomagnified to be able to control the crust in ships without damaging the population of this keystone species. Okay, so here you have now this is the snails that suffer. Okay, and if you want to watch a fun video about mercury, I have a suggestion here. Humor is very good to make us remember, and if you watch this video, I guarantee you're going to remember that mercury can be a problem if you eat some fish for the rest of your life. Okay. Here you have a questionnaire. I hope you have fun doing it. I see you in the next video.